Let's start looking at politics, strategic politics. All right. You've got a council which has failed to honour the social contract that they made with you. You contribute to the levy, they will invest that money and they will develop an adequate transport infrastructure. They haven't done it. So I'm going to suggest first of all that from this meeting that we demand that Wollongong Council, instead of producing a glossy brochure to say there's another feasibility study, they actually convene a large meeting of all residents in Horsley. This is their big fear. I'd ask people who've lived in Horsley for some years the last time that Rod Oxley or David Farmer actually had a meeting with you to explain, oh, by the way, here is the timeline of the project, this is the amount of money that you have contributed as a community, and this is where it's gone, and this is what we're going to do with it. When was the last time that Rod Oxley or David Farmer had that meeting with you? Can anyone tell me? I don't live here. I think the answer is obvious. They never have. Well, they have to. That's transparency. And from transparency comes accountability. Well, what's the accountability in this? It's got to be built. Not an excuse, not a problem that we're going to have another feasibility. It's got to be built. Let's identify the areas where this can be funded from. Infrastructure Australia is a potential area. And let's develop a campaign of the whole community together, led by the political representatives, resourced by the local government, and we put together a strategy, not a feasibility study, not another idea, but something of the actual steps of where we're going to take this, where we're going to get funding from. You probably have read in the newspaper all the time about Malton-Dunbarton railway line, about this project that's being put forward, and never Horsley. Why is it that Malton-Dunbarton is being put forward so strenuously when there's been a recent study by the federal government that says Malton-Dunbarton is not viable? It'll never be built. It won't work because it was originally designed for the Western coalfields. They're not there. So we have this continual pushing of Malton-Dunbarton. My view is we should be pushing a comprehensive, integrated transport infrastructure from the west of the city, which is Horsley, which incorporates the problems that we have within the city with very, very poor public transport. So yes, West Dapto Bridge to be built as a matter of urgency. Secondly, we have a light rail infrastructure which comes from Horsley, which runs through Kembla Range, through Berkeley, those areas which don't have rail, those areas which people struggle to purchase a car, those areas which have terrible public transport. And we have a light rail infrastructure, which hopefully will get some people off the roads, but also will provide a safe, clean, environmentally sustainable transport infrastructure. And people will immediately say, I know what the ALP was to say to me. How are you going to fund it? Well, we're going to fund it by the fact that the federal government has more than adequate funding under Infrastructure Australia. What we have to do is unite the region behind the objective and to be able to succeed politically in getting those decisions made where they are made. That's in Canberra primarily and also at the state government level. But first of all, let's tackle the problem of the West Dapto Bridge. And let's have a campaign. One of the things we learned on both sides of the industrial relations fence was that if you don't really campaign, if you don't really get organised and active on both sides, nothing will happen. And I always felt that from my point of view, the worst management was weak management. In other words, people who didn't know what they were doing. And on my side, apart from corrupt union officials, the worst thing was weak union officials who didn't know what they were doing, but worse than that, didn't care. I think what we do from this public meeting is pass resolutions. We take them to Wollongong Council. We put it directly to Wollongong Council. First, there'd be an accountability statement. Secondly, there'd be a big public meeting to be held out here, to be attended by David Farmer and by the Lord Mayor. And thirdly, that we insist that there be an implementation of this project within, I would say, 2 years, maximum. and that be a commitment. Not a vague sort of, well, there's a projection for this. It's a commitment. It has to be done. In this region, we used to build big things. We used to. Apart from the steel industry and everything we did there, we also built, believe it or not, this is a city in which a smallish bridge at West Epto can't be built. We built the Sydney Harbour Tunnel Bridge in this city. We did that. Incredible that there is this wonderful engineering achievement up in Sydney, built by people down here, largely local labour. Yeah, we had a few disputes along the way, but it was built. And then we built the SO oil platforms, which are out there in Bass Strait, the only concrete construction in the southern hemisphere. Only the Norwegians had ever done that before. So we built that. That was the last big project we ever built in this city. And that was 1996. Since then, nothing. This is the next big one. We start the infrastructure development from Horsley with the West Epto Bridge. And we have people in this audience, I know them, who are highly skilled, who not only are residents, they know how to build things. Now, we've got a problem with governance. Our problem isn't the lack of intelligence and the lack of inspiration that exists amongst the people who live here. Our problem is the people who politically administer the city. That's a big problem. So the politics of the Australian Labor Party have failed. The only way that they have succeeded, the only measure of success, is the continual return of the politicians back into power. What comes back to the community? You look around. What can they, at a meeting like this, what can they put on a chart which says list of achievements in the city? What are they?